morning, and thanks for joining us here on Condo Solutions. Monday morning, 9 to 10 o'clock here on WSTU. We talk about things that affect you in your condo and your homeowners association. Some of the things that you may be interested in and may want to know about. You might be new to condos in Florida or new to homeowners associations in Florida, not fully be aware of all of the rules and regulations, or maybe you've moved from a homeowners association to a condo association, and now things aren't exactly the same as they used to be, and you're not sure why or what they should be. That's what we're here for. That's what Condo Solutions is about. My name is Mark Breckbill. I'm a CPA and a community association manager, and have been working in this industry for about 25 years. But the person that everybody calls for is Peter Mullengarden. He's our attorney that's been with us doing this show for the last 16 or 17. And he's the one that has the background. He's been doing condo law and HOA law for 30 some years. And he's the one that has a real good handle on what's going on and all of the things, and not only the things that are happening now, but a lot of times some of the stuff that has happened in court, and some of the stuff that's happening in the future or is being talked about, all of those kind of things. So we're here as a resource for you. It's a call-in show. 220-9788, 220-WSTU is the number in the studio, and you're welcome to call. Evan will get you on the line. All we need is your name, and it doesn't even have to be your name because Evan doesn't check. So it's any name will count, and we'll get you on the air. We don't need the association. Prefer we don't have that, because sometimes it causes confusion among people. They think maybe the question doesn't apply to them, and many times it does. And so we don't need that. And the only other thing we always tell people in the morning is that we give you the best answer we can based on what we have, and we call those radio answers. What we're getting at is that we don't have your documents, and those people that have been listening for a long time or have been dealing in this industry know that the documents, all of your documents, whether it's your HOA docs or your condo docs, they all can affect the answer, because they can change the answer, because sometimes they override the statute. So we're going to give you the best answer we can based on general knowledge of the law, general knowledge of the rules and regulations in court cases, and your interpretation of the documents or some of the language in the documents. Again, since we don't have all of the documents, though, even we know that they're confusing, and sometimes they can be conflicting. That's one of the things that if you have an issue that needs to go to court, that you contact somebody like Peter, who does know the law in this area and can get in and look at all of your documents and see if one is conflicting with another and which one would take precedence in court and that kind of thing. So anyway, that's kind of the theme of the show. That's how it works, and it's been working that way for about the last 17 years. I think has been the process, and hopefully we've been able to help you if you're a regular listener, and for those new listeners, hopefully we can help you if you've got a question or something you want to ask about. So again, the number in the studio is 220-9788. That's also 220-WSTU. And if you write that number down, that's used by a lot of the other shows within the WSTU system, and a lot of them allow for you to call in and ask questions. So just keep that number handy. It's also a good way to have the number right beside you in the morning, so you can get on right away on this show if you've got something you want to ask about. So that's the introduction. That's all, it's what we say. I should record that. Evan, I should just record that and say, here's what it is. So, but the one thing I never have recorded, even though it's true, is I know in the past, all of the radio shows used to have this thing that the views expressed on this show are not those of WSTU or its affiliates or something like that. But they're not. Nobody, not even Peter takes any credit for anything I say. It's verbally all mine. But no. So the WSTU doesn't give much advice on condos and HOAs anyway, so I don't think we would have a problem there. Good morning, Peter. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Okay. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
How are you?
Not too bad. I tell you, it has been an unbelievable year. It's going to be, I think in the future, we're going to be we're going to always refer to a bad year as a coronavirus year. Gee, I'm having a coronavirus year this year, because it is just not making any sense many places. It's just some of the things that happen are just crazy different. I mean, and I saw the numbers today on the Florida's numbers, and now they're way down. 2 weeks ago, they were talking about we were going to be the worst place in the whole world to live. The coronavirus was going to kill us all. And, we're on the road to, multiples. And then, here we are, oh, well, we're 3,600 positive. Well, I don't know. Who knows? A lot of that has got to do with testing, but it's anyway, one way or another. But it's kind of interesting that, we're just been all over the place. And now we got an election coming up tomorrow. And then, of course, in November. And that's going to be interesting. Some of our associations are used as polling locations. What's your feeling on that, Peter? Do you recommend that for the time being the associations don't do that, or what's your thoughts right now going forward in the election process?
Well, I don't believe any of mine or any that I represent are polling places. They might be, but they haven't just told me. What are my thoughts on being used as a polling place?
Yeah, or really, any kind of, like, some of the associations rent their facility out for, they allow it to be rented out for weddings or, things like that, or periodically by members, being rented out by members. What's your feelings
Well,
on that?
condominium associations by statute can lease the common elements. The HOA Act doesn't have that provision. You have to look at their documents for their authority to do something like that. I mean, there's always the concern because, the statutes basically provide that common elements and common area must be available to the membership for the purposes intended. Okay, I don't think the purposes intended is to use as a polling place or any other outside, weddings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Using it, for outside stuff like that, I think, it's hard pressed to say that's within the statute. Using it for exclusive use for your own residence, I think, that's, that you can do. But even there, I usually have my associations, enter into some kind of agreement, with the people that are going to reserve the use in terms of, where they're going to indemnify the association, perhaps have a security deposit provision, if there's any damage, maybe some insurance requirements if they can get a rider on their own policies to protect the association. So, usually I am most concerned, other than the right of use issue, is the liability issue with respect to the use. Is there alcohol going to be served?
I hope so, because I'm not going if there's no alcohol.
Yeah, to address those issues. Don't worry, you're not going to be invited. Okay.
I'm a gate crasher. I'll be.
I don't think anyone would have you at their
No.
at their event.
No, they wouldn't.
So those are typically the my concerns when they're using it for some other purpose other than what the premises are normally intended to be used as.
Yeah, it's I know a lot of associations are they have events, and right now it hasn't been an issue. I mean, frankly, probably the events that got canceled were in March and April, and not many in April. A lot of people have their final events at the end of March or whatever. So there might have been some of those that were canceled last season, but coming up here now, it's we're only a few months away now from 3 months away from really when season starts. So it's kind of interesting because I doubt it might be, but I doubt that we'll have all of our we'll have everything resolved by then. It's going to be kind of interesting about that. I want to talk about the condo aspect of that. and some of the events that the associations have, and the social activities they have, and what they might want to do, because they're probably planning some of those now. But and so we can talk about that. But the other thing that's going to be kind of interesting is that, and I assume that probably, a lot of people come down in November, mostly by by Veterans Day, or the 11th or whatever. It seems to be a big date. But and a lot of communities have opening parties that weekend. But it's going to be interesting because a lot of people come down here and open up their place, and some of them vote here because most of them are residents here, or they have to get a ballot and have it mailed in. And with this election, and being a kind of a big election, and people being real, I think a lot of people interested in it, it'll be interesting to see what happens and whether people come in November. I saw an article in the paper about the questions of, we've got one of the most active storm seasons that we've had since 2005. And 2005, we had Gene that they were talking about hit in October. And, I'm thinking, well, yeah, that's October. But they mentioned that Palm Beach County was without power until the 11th of November after Gene. So, I think it's just we got a lot of stuff coming up in the next few months that associations and the people that live in them may have to deal with. It's it's going to be kind of interesting. What do I know a lot of associations have big social seasons that start either in December or in full swing in January and February and March. And they get together and they rent buses and they have parties and they have booze, all those kind of things. Let's go over that again. I mean, what are some of the things? I'm not talking just coronavirus, and you can add that to it if you want. But what are some of the things that associations should look at when they're looking at community events? And then what other stuff you might want to look at because of the coronavirus? Go ahead.
Well, when we get up at the virus, obviously that puts a whole different spin on it, look on it. But even in a normal situation or an ordinary situation, without the virus, one of the first things you have to look at is expense. And if it's, social events, contrary to what, a lot of my clients seem to think, social activities typically are not a common expense.
Right.
Unless your documents either included as originally drafted or as amended to include social activities as a common expense.
Just out of curiosity, Peter, have you seen many associations modifying their documents for that?
Yes.
Okay. I never thought about that.
I wouldn't say a lot, but some. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, they have social committees, and sometimes if they want to make it a common expense, they make it a common expense. But so that's the first thing you need to look at, because it's having parties and stuff typically is not a common expense.
Right.
Although many associations do it, and just do it and see if anyone ever challenges them on it. So that's the first thing. Next is what type of event. As I said, I did mention the alcohol before. You cannot sell alcohol. You can't charge for admission if there's going to be alcohol. That's deemed to be the sale of alcohol, as opposed to bring your own. It's very difficult to get an alcohol license, and even a temporary license for a single event. So you can't sell drinks, or you can't charge.
But you can give it away, right?
People bring their own is the best way to do that. And then you have the issues about liability. Generally speaking, you're not liable. If someone drinks too much and then goes out and does something terrible. But if you know someone is inebriated, or you should understand that they're inebriated, and yet you continue to allow them to drink, then there is liability, or there is a potential liability. And that's kind of the general rule, though. You just got to be concerned about that, even if you think you're not liable. So there is that issue. Those are the most significant issues that come up when it's an association event or association, sponsored event, whatever you want to call it.
It's funny. Years ago, before they changed the law relative to a quorum for homeowners associations, it used to be impossible to get people to show up for HOA meetings, and so if you had something that had to be done that required a certain vote, it was almost impossible to get people to show up. And I know, in those days, the associations did one of two things. They either said, we're having a special assessment, and so, you better show up to hear about it, and that usually got the place going, or we're having a party and there'll be booze.
Right.
And that was the two ways that you got a quorum in the old days. Now it's not quite as bad. So, but
now it's 30%, not
not
a majority.
Yeah, I know.
But condos is still, typically a majority unless they've amended their documents. HOA is 30% for a quorum, unless the documents have a lower number. Just wanted to mention that since you brought it up.
Yeah.
So again, I did mention before, with these private events, the concerns typically, as stated, are things like the liability, indemnity, insurance coverage, just the exclusive use itself. Some people object to that. But going to the virus now, what that does, the thing, I know at least for many of my clients, as far as I know, still, because the declaration of emergency is still in effect, will be in effect, that the governor issued, and then he extended until September 7th, I believe. So I know, again, for many associations, their clubhouses are still remain closed to prevent the gathering of people indoors, which is still not a safe activity, even though, as you said, the numbers have gone down recently. They still are relatively high. 3,000-4,000 people a day is still nothing to sneeze at. You're still over 100 deaths a day.
Nothing to cough at, by the way, not sneeze at. It's nothing to cough at. But go ahead.
So there still is concerns. Obviously, this thing hasn't gone away. So I don't know how much partying there's going to be this fall. I tend to think that probably not much. We'll see whether the declaration of emergency gets extended again in a couple of weeks, a few weeks. And even if it's not, I think every association is going to have to sit down and think pretty hard about, what kind of gatherings they want to have, or what kind of protocols, social distancing, masks. I think all this is still very, very important, particularly considering the average age of many communities. I'm not saying every community in Florida is a retirement village, but let's face it, still
especially over in the West Coast in the St. Petersburg area. The average age over there is dead. They're old over there.
Well, you're on a roll today, huh?
Yeah,
well, yeah, but they get to vote twice though when they're dead. So.
That's true. They do.
Speaking of voting,
that's true.
So
that's because a lot of them are from Chicago, and it's the philosophy up in Chicago: vote early, vote often.
Yeah, you can hang a chat or two down here.
That's
Miami.
right.
I'm not in Miami, but
that's true.
Actually, that wasn't Miami. Excuse me, that was Palm Beach County. What am I saying?
Yeah.
So in any event, I think, and not that this is a big, very difficult prediction or prognostication. I think it's pretty obvious that this fall is going to be the season, whatever you want to call it. This season is going to be unlike any other. Especially if the virus decides to spike up again. But even if it stays at a current level, I just can't see. I think it's going to be interesting annual meeting season.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting just to see how, are we all going to be in the Zoom proxy mode for a while with very little in-person meetings. I think so, but we'll see. But this is going to have an impact whether it's social events or just business events for associations. Trying to still plod through, and then I think we're going to have a lot of, at least some, if associations are insisting on keeping their their clubhouses and their fitness centers and gyms closed.
Well, I know.
I think we're going to see some friction both ways on that. Friction if they're open, friction if they're kept closed. So
yeah, so I think that's the case, and I think that I think we're going to see a lot of different. I think we're going to see a lot of different things going on. I think we've got some communities that are very, 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 very active in terms of social things, and some less. But I know we have. We have a number of associations that used to rent buses and do trips and do all this kind of. And I think we'll see that. I think you're right. I think we'll see that. Probably go away or at least be deferred until later in the season. And then I think, I think we'll see a lot more smaller gatherings. I think that where you had parties of 20 maybe before and everybody would invite a friend. I think maybe there'll be more of these, kind of small rotating cocktail party type things that aren't kind of big a gathering. But we have a caller. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Hi, I'd like to change the subject a little bit.
Yep, go ahead.
We just purchased a $200,000 annuity in our association, and we already have a $150,000 annuity. That annuity is in the treasurer's name. He's the annuitant, and we just purchased 3 weeks ago $200,000 in the president's name annuity, $200,000. Right. From my understanding, from personal annuity that I own, I am the annuitant. My children are the beneficiaries. We don't know who the beneficiary is. We don't have any papers to show that it's even legal.
I'll make it easy on you, Bonnie. That's an illegal investment. If you contact the state, if you're a condo association, they will come and take the treasurer and the president away. I mean, that is not allowed. You can't do that. I don't care what the return is on it. I can buy futures and maybe make 100% return, but that's not allowed investment. So whatever the deal is, I don't know who's advising them, but that is an illegal investment. Contact the state, file a complaint, and they will send people down to take care of it.
Okay, because there was a telephone vote, and a lot of us, now there's 15 people on the board, said no, absolutely not. When I spoke to the president, I requested a copy of, the people who voted for it. It's been 3 weeks. He still hasn't produced it. So we really don't know whether it's an accurate vote, whether he just called. Actually, I do know for a fact that even after he bought it, he hadn't called a few board members. And when I spoke to them, they said no. And then that was, I think, on a Sunday. And then they called me and said, one of them did, and the other one called someone else, that, in fact, he had just called them. That was after the fact.
Well, he could call anybody.
Even the vote itself is pretty immaterial.
Yeah, he can call anybody. He can ask anybody. He could get a vote. Everybody could have said yes. Still an illegal investment. Here's what happens. It's an annuity, right?
It's an annuity. He purchased it through a broker, through a bank. I'm sure this guy knows, the broker knows that it's not, it's our money. It's
he may or may not know, but you have to have an individual who's involved in an insurance product, and that's an insurance product. Also, if you've ever bought insurance of your own, you know that one of the things that has to happen on that is if you're married, your spouse has to sign off. because they have a right by law to an insurance policy. If you don't, how many people have gotten divorced and forgot to change their insurance policies, right?
Right.
So not only does it need a person's life to be the annuitant, even if the association was the owner of the policy, and even if the association was the beneficiary of the policy, other people have claims on those proceeds. That's why you can't do it. And so that's why the state needs to know. It's, I cannot tell you enough about the associations. I mean, I'm on statewide committees on associations, same as Peter. He gets around to all of these places all over the state. But I'm telling you, there have been huge frauds in Miami-Dade County, Broward County, all relative to these annuities. And yes,
okay. Well, this is St. Lucie County.
Yeah. So I'm saying I mean, what I'm getting at is the state is aware that some people are out there doing that is an illegal activity. If you notify them, they'll and file a report, they will get somebody on that because they've sent people to jail for it. So it's one of those things where there is no reason why it's good. And this brings back to the same. This is just out and out a non-allowed investment because you're taking company assets and you're in effect potentially transferring it to the name of an individual within the association. That's against 617, the statute that you're chartered under, and it's illegal under 718. I don't think I don't think it's allowed under. It's not allowed under 720. I just don't know if 720 specifically deals with it, but it is not an allowed investment. And so, associations need to draw the line. There's other things. I understand interest rates are low, and these seem better, but there's a reason why they're not, and that's why
Yeah, because they're a little bit more risky, and we already
it's not their
know
money.
that
it's not their money. Yeah, that's the other thing.
Right. But we already know that we need the bulk of this money to do other things. And that was my question to him. When you take that money out because we need it, you're going to, telephone, Rich, you're going to pay penalties and you're going to lose interest and blah, blah, blah. And he says, oh, no, we won't worry about that. Yet now we hear that our dues may go up substantially because we're going to need to do this work. It's like craziness.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's not the way it should be. And a lot of people don't have the money right now, and they have to borrow. So the fact that the association has tied up money that should be used for this purpose, yeah, and it's all those things. I mean, there's really two things here. One, the annuity thing, that's just wrong, just not allowed. Doesn't make any difference what you do and who says it's okay. It's not. There are things where the government protects you from yourself, and that's one of them.
All right.
The other is the investment philosophy, and and as Peter has said, and I've said on the show before, from an investment philosophy standpoint, it is not return on your principal that counts. It's return of your principal. Your job when you're managing those assets are to make sure that the money is there when it's needed.
Exactly. I mean, we also own REITs, which are losing, hand over fist. I don't know where they're getting their, and does the broker get paid?
Oh, yeah, big time. Nice commissions. Yeah, in fact, if you want to go ahead and do that, just give me a call because you can make a lot of money off of, somebody's making a lot of money off of you. That's the other thing. There's somebody making a lot of money off this deal.
Yes, the same broker, and it's nauseating. Okay.
And by the way, REITs also don't fall into the category of being an allowed investment. So
I know.
So
I know. We've already been battling that one, and then these two came up. And it's like, I can't believe it. They're just going, I don't know. I think the Florida sun got to them or something.
Well, that sounds like it. But, and what has to happen, frankly, Bonnie, is people have to go, they have to get arrested, they have to get convicted, and they have to get a record so that other people realize that you can't do this, because these guys, Other people will continue to do this until they hear, oh, wait a minute. I heard of a president in St. Lucie County that did 3 years in prison for that. Maybe we should look at this again. And that's the only way you stop this, is there has to be penalties that are stiff enough, including prosecution, to make these people not do this. And I would just say to the treasurer and president of your association, I will not come visit you in jail. Maybe somebody else will. Maybe there's conjugal visits, but I'm not coming to visit you. You're doing your time.
No cookies. I mean, I'm a person, a small person, and when it was addressed to me for the first one, I had to explain to some of the board members that if you are the annuitant, which I am, I have a beneficiary, which are my children. I said, you cannot have a beneficiary as the condo association. And some people just didn't kind of like understand that for a while until we got more into it and dug into it a little bit more. But even I knew that.
Well, and you can name a beneficiary, and that beneficiary could be a corporate entity. It can be a trust. It could be something else. But the problem is that by law, insurance is an area that has additional restrictions on it that require, if you're doing something like that, if the beneficiary isn't your spouse, if your spouse is living, or your kids, your legal beneficiaries, then typically they have to sign off on that kind of thing. Right. Especially with spouses, because it's deemed to be their money. So you can't get away with that kind of stuff. And and beyond all of that, even if you ultimately get your money back, you put that money at risk for challenges by estates. It could get tied up in an estate issue. There's all kinds of things. What if somebody argues, you're going to say, well, that was association money. And what if that person who's the annuitant bought something else at the same time personally, right? So they did $100,000 annuity, and then they did another, $100,000 annuity for the association, in quotes. Well, if I'm a family member, I'm going to claim, well, no, the association money went to buy his personal annuity. So it didn't go to this annuity. This annuity is mine, and I want my money back. And so. That's why those contractual things like that are not allowed. They're not investments that are allowed. Basically the state does allow some discretion. They don't encourage it, but you can invest in certain things. There are certain equity products. There are certain, stuff that you can invest in. Not a good idea. They discourage it. But there are other things, you can't go out buying gold and silver and REITs and all kinds of things like that. Those are not allowed investments. Just like in an IRA, certain investments aren't allowed. State has limitations as well. I don't remember them all right offhand, but I know they're pretty restrictive, And then, as I've kind of mentioned before, if you do something like that, it completely changes your financial statements too. Makes your financial statements more complicated. The audit of your financial statements is more complicated and expensive. There's disclosure that's required. So if you've got a CPA that's doing your financial statements and they're not disclosing this stuff, they need to be told about it.
The first one wasn't even on our audit.
Yeah, see, you need to, and somebody needs to bring that up to whoever the auditor is and mention it to them.
We did, and then it came in as a cash. I don't know how he put it in. He revised it, but now that's the first one. This is the second one, and it's for more. So let me understand this. If they bought the annuity and it's in the president's name, even if the association is the beneficiary, the wife or family, or if he owes money to other people, would have a right to that, or would think they have a right to that.
They may claim a right to that, yes.
Okay.
So anytime you bring an individual into the equation, you bring all of their potential creditors into the equation.
Right.
And yes, insurance products are normally protected from creditors, but not if they're not set up correctly. So, the idea behind an insurance policy is the purpose of it is not investment. It is to protect somebody's life so that they have money to pay their taxes or assets or money for their beneficiaries. So
Right.
that's why that stuff is protected. But if you've got a corporate owner and a corporate beneficiary, that's not going to be the case. Creditors can challenge that. So now his personal creditors could challenge that.
Okay. And did I mention one is in his 80s and the other one is not well?
Well, then
Okay.
here, I've got another suggestion for you. Now, I'm kind of kidding. So I'm going to say this, but I got to suggest maybe you should buy senior viaticals. That's another really good investment. Senior viaticals, maybe on the president and the treasurer. I mean, they're at least close to death, so you might get your money back. But anyway.
Okay.
All right.
Jason, yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Bonnie.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I tell you, Peter, I feel sorry for people. I mean, geez, I know they're out there trying to do good, but oh man, I tell you what, it's just crazy what's going on out there. And insurance is a difficult world to deal in. It is because it does have some creditor protections, and those can backfire on an association.
But why would these guys even buy these annuities?
Because here's why.
I mean, I know they're trying to increase their return.
Yeah, here's why. Typically, they're not buying immediate annuities and you don't have any principal left when the individual dies. Sometimes those are, over a set period of time, but so it's not that. Sometimes they're buying these variable annuities where you buy stocks and bonds and everything within the annuity, and then you theoretically don't pay any tax on it. And then but what typically they're buying are these short-term annuities. They're short-term annuities, usually, a year or 2 years or 3 years. And they have a minimum return. So what happens is that you get a minimum of 3% return. So they're looking at a 3-year CD and they're getting less than 1%. And they figure if they buy a 3-year annuity, they're going to get a minimum of 3% and maybe 6 or something like that. So that's why they do it. That was a big product, when interest rates were down previously. A lot of places, individuals started looking at those. That was a real big strategy for individuals to invest, because it was only really open to individuals, and they would do that. So that's the thing. There's no insurance on it, of course, on the product itself, and so you're wide open on it. But that's why it's just somebody wanting to be a big shot, telling their friends, we get 3%, you only get 1% because we're smarter than you. That boils it down. That's pretty much. I think we could talk about all of the alternatives, but that's pretty much it. It's a couple guys wanting to show that they're smarter than everybody else, along with their broker, obviously. So anyway, so that's it. But just for people that aren't aware, I mentioned there was a huge fraud down in Broward County, and then in Dade County. A property manager was doing this as well as taking money from the association. There was a board in Broward County that all of the board members were buying annuities for the association. The money was given to them to buy the annuities. That was a $12 million, I think that was a $11 million deal or something like that. I don't know. I think like each director got $1 million to go out and invest. So that one, people got in trouble for that. But the big one was this property manager that managed to take a fair amount of money and move it out of the association. And just like Bonnie said, that's what actually happens, because an audit firm isn't expecting you to have invested in an annuity. That doesn't get confirmed. That doesn't show up on a bank statement. Even CDs sometimes are hard to trace because they don't show up. Now we send a we send confirmations, for example, to a bank, and what we'll ask them is, do you have any other accounts here in the association's name? Do you have any loans in the association's names? And, and trying to find out if there's unreported accounts. But the problem with that is that the banks won't do that anymore. They've gotten to the point that they will not tell you that. You've got to tell them exactly what accounts you're asking about. Typically, they will not. Some of the local banks, if you go into them, they will help you, but most of them won't. Most of it's an electronic confirmation. They won't even talk to you, and they don't take any responsibility for anything other than what you put on the statement, which is always a problem. Just anyway, from a audit standpoint, is because every year, if you've got board member changes and they change signature cards, sometimes new accounts get open, sometimes the signature cards aren't up to date. So when we go to request information, they don't have the new signature cards, so they won't give us the answer because the person that signed our confirmation wasn't authorized. So some CPA firms, not ours, but some CPA firms have given up on that. They just do alternative procedures and don't confirm. But even there, it's almost impossible to find something like this, because if you don't find it the year it went in, by seeing $100,000, for example, just leave, and then all of a sudden, and then know that it's out there, you don't even know to send somebody a confirmation to say, do you have this investment still? What happened to this investment? And whose name is it under? And all of that kind of stuff. So, that's a big problem. If you're trying to beat the interest rate game, the safest thing to do, and the thing that works the best, it's not big returns, but it's still the CDARS program, the Certificate of Deposit Account Registry, CDARS system, and most of the banks participate in that. And what it does is, you put your money in, it all goes into bank deposits, and it goes into this registry, and your bank that you're dealing with, they give you a statement that shows all of the money that you hold at all of the other associations. And what you do is you keep it under the insurance limits so that everything is insured. So you've got all insured deposits. You can take more risk in terms of interest rate. You don't have to check the banks out as much because it's insured. And as long as you stay under the insurance amount plus accrued interest, you're not going to lose any money. It's insured by the U.S. government. So, that's probably the riskiest safe investment. And most people can get, maybe a quarter or a half or 3/4 more by going and using those kind of things. The only other way you get a higher interest rate is a longer maturity. So, for example, an annuity pays a higher interest rate typically, and a higher return, because A, it isn't insured, and B, it is long-term potentially. The person's going to live a fair amount of time. And so therefore, they've got the money for a long term, and you've got your money tied up long term. That's why the penalties are fairly significant when you get out of those things. If you try to get out of them. So anyway, and then, besides all of that, you may have tax issues relative to the income that's reported out of those, because they are tax deferred products. And so therefore they may cause you tax problems that ultimately could cause you some significant tax liability. But anyway, so that's just some of the things on those investments. But anyway, Peter, I guess that's kind of an interesting, it's interesting that we're hearing it seems that stuff is moving around. It's really, I say that the directors have to go to jail, and they do. They need to be convicted. Maybe they can serve some probation. But what has to happen more than anything is the brokers that are selling these products, they need to be the ones that they need to lose their license or be sanctioned, because they will continue to do that until they pay the price. And they have an obligation as the broker to do some research and know whether or not that is a legal investment for their client and where that money's coming from. Now, maybe sometimes they're not told, but they know, because they got other products with this same person. And then you get into all this other stuff, because because your president or treasurer are doing this kind of activity with the broker, is the broker cutting them a break on fees. So, for example, typically you're paying fees based on how much money you have on deposit. So let's say I've got $500,000 with my broker. I may be paying 1% in fees because I only have $500,000. But now if I do these association investments, even if they were the associations, and my broker gives me credit for having $1 million because they're making fees off of the association activity, they give me credit for having $1 million, my rate might drop down to 0.5%. So, I've just saved a few $1,000s on my investment account. That's a personal inurement that is not allowed under the law for a director of an association. So there's, regardless of this, there's all these things that make this kind of activity illegal. So anyway, just mention that. Got a couple minutes left. Appreciate the question, Bonnie. That was a good one. I like to get on that again, even though we've talked about it a couple times, because for some reason or another, this word gets around and people start thinking it's okay to do this stuff. And next thing you know, you got it all over the place and it's hard to find. And, till an association loses all their money because nobody can find out where all the money went and it's in somebody else's name and all that kind of stuff. Speaking of meetings, we were talking a little bit about meetings, Peter. Have you had many meetings? I know a lot of the associations kind of are a little off, or are taken off right now. Have most of your meetings been Zoom now, or just not having a lot of meetings?
Personally, or with the associations?
With the associations.
I think the associations are the ones that are having via Zoom. Okay. Or they're just waiting. But I think not that many in-person meetings anymore.
Fortunately, this hit during the bulk of the summer when a lot of activity has. A lot of the stuff is work that's being done, but not meetings that are being held. So, that's a good thing. But we've got meetings coming up. We got all the planning meetings coming up for budget and all of that. So, well, we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you calling in. We appreciate the opportunity to help you out and get some answers for your community. We're here every Monday morning from 9 to 10 o'clock on WSTU. So, write it down, join, ask your friends to join. We're happy to help you any way we can. Thanks for joining us right here on Condo Solutions, WSTU Digital 1450. We are Martin County's Heritage Station.